Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So what I'm going to do this time around, I'm going to do an analysis of some of the games that I had in the first tournament. I think that tournament was... Let me see when it was. It's 6 days ago, so last week's Hourly Rapid. I botched a lot of games that were either clear, I had a clear advantage and I missed it, or I didn't get off on a good start, or I had actually, in a couple of these games, I had a winning position and I gave it up. So I'm going to go through this and y'all are going to see how this works. So we've got this little thing right here called the learn from your mistakes thing. This one, I had a clear advantage here. This was a very clear advantage that I had, and once I gave that up, there was no coming back, and a couple of my blunders were absolutely just... You can see the difference in cent upon loss. What cent upon loss is, it's the aggregate of how your blunders, inaccuracies, and mistakes work over time. So we're going to do this. We're going to play this little game here. I played bishop to d7 here, when really I believe the move is either d5 takes c4 or c takes d. I think it is c takes d, if I'm correct. Yes. Because then that forces this. As we say, because then that forces this move here. And now white is playing with this isolated queen's pawn right here. And it can develop into a very easy target for a black, for black's counterattack. a6, preparing b5 to kick the bishop. You ask the question, counter-ask the question. The bishop staves off, and now your knight is positioned very well on d5. It's blocking the advance of this pawn, and he's probably going to lodge his knight on e5, which is another good position for it. So that was the first move. That one was definitely a mistake. Let's see. It's either going to be c takes d. That doesn't feel right, but I want to give it a shot. Again, d takes c. D takes c4 is still a better move. It still leaves him with that isolated queen's pawn. So again, a much better move. And the move right after takes c4. And the move right after with bishop takes c4, so b5 was a better option. Let's see, so he actually had a better option on there as well. b5 push was not good. I believe this one was, if I'm correct, it was bishop to e8. Is that correct? No, not quite the move it's looking for. Definitely not knight takes here. Nope. Still not good. This one's very curious. This one is very, very curious. No, dear me. That was terrible. You leave your bishop floating there. Goodness. Oh wait, no. This is where you move your rook to the open file. Moving your rook, and then you've got a huge line of white pieces down this file. Now, as to the next major mistake that I made, it was here. This is where you move the bishop to e8, and you open up this attack against this d pawn here, at which point he is either forced to take that knight or he defends this pawn more adequately. The computer suggested this, so if we go for that, that actually, I think, that actually wins the pawn outright, and then you can trade down to a pawn up in the endgame. That's actually really good for black. Okay. Now, as to the next bit, this one was just absolutely... That h6 move was absolutely stupid. G6 would have been the much better defensive move, because now it blocks. You can see that the queen and the bishop were connecting on h7 for a mate threat. Dropping g6 instead of h6 was a much better response. His queen has to go back, and again, he's still got slight point, of lead, but nothing too terrible. Let's see, queen to c7. The bishop moves here. You can shield it with the knight, and there's a lot of other things that go on. As to that, those were all my mistakes, and those were absolutely terrible. It says that he actually made 3 mistakes, so I'm curious as to what he made. He played queen to c2 in this position. I think it's, if I'm correct, it's c takes, yes, it's d takes c5, and then bishop takes, and then you can play either queen to c2, you can play queen to c2 then. Then if he takes here, you take here, and you're not left with your isolated queen's pawn as white. It's a much better game. It's a little bit of a better game for white, but he hasn't gained too much out of the opening here. You can see it's a flat 0. B4, yes. Here, he should have defended with b3. He should have backed up his pawn chain here with b3. That way, even if I take here, he gets the hanging pawns that are kind of standard in these kind of openings. These are called hanging pawns because they're not connected to any pawn islands, but it's kind of an iconic thing that happens in this kind of situation. But if you go back a little ways, he can play his knight here. He can defend. You can take it, and he can take back. You can move the rook to... There's a lot of things that black can do. It's a very... It's a position that is very highly in flux, is what I would say. It can fluctuate very quickly. But black is very flexible in these positions. Finally, knight to e5. Let's see. Could he have pushed? I don't think, no, because if he pushes that b pawn, then pawn takes, pawn takes. Actually, no, I don't think he can do that. I wonder if he could play bishop to f4, controlling the e5 square. No, that's no good. Still not good. still not good, my word. I'm curious as to what he should do here. Ah, because now you can release this, you can kind of release these central tensions, and this bishop just gets stuck. This bishop will be stuck here for a while, because now you've got to play your knight here, and he's going to play the bishop there, and this bishop is only relegated to this half of the board now, because these pawns are just taking up all these squares, all these dark squares. Like right here and right here, these are just, it's just a no-go for any of those squares. So this bishop is going to be like shut out of the half of the game. So that was my first one that I botched. Now there are going to be some of these that you're not going to believe. This one in particular was absolutely, like, look at that center pawn loss. 106. And there was a point in this game, right here, I had an absolute advantage. Just look at that position. Look at that position. I'm completely dominating up in the corner there. It's just, there's just no way. And I make one mistake, and then I blunder nearly 3 times in a row. There's 2 there, and there's another right there, and it just, I gave it away. Absolutely just gave it away. And we're going to go ahead and learn from that, and that's just unforgivable. Oh. Let's see. So my first mistake was bishop takes f3, when I probably could have... I probably could have either castled or... No, I couldn't have castled because that bishop is going to come over here, and that's why I didn't castle. That's actually why I didn't castle. That one actually wasn't that good. No, no, that's not good at all. Let me see. Probably just try pushing the pawn, and computer says that's an okay move. But, it wants g5. It wants an immediate g5. Because now you've got this check. That bishop can move back. You move your queen here. That bishop has to move. And then you just drop that rook right onto the open file. That's beautiful. And it wants you to keep that light squared bishop alive, because that's contributing to the attack. Oh, and now you can just almost force a trade of queens here. This one was a bit more of a small advantage when I was ahead. Actually, no, that was when I was way behind. That was actually right at the draw point right there. I played my queen over to try and trade down into what I thought was a winning endgame, but no good. I actually could have done way better in this position, it says. Oh no, that doesn't work anymore. A5, though, is one of the better moves at this point. And that was much later. And that was, trying to trade queens at that point was just absolutely, that was wrong. That was completely off. This one was just a special form of mess-upness. I'm guessing it was something like that, trying to trap it. No, can't trap it. No, and you still can't even play g5 anymore. Castling is actually the better move. And I didn't even think to castle at that point. That would have been beautiful. And let's look at the continuation that the computer gives. Bishop moves. Shoring up your pawns there. Ugh. And you're playing an exchange down. It's no good. Let's see. Rook from b to b5. That's the only drawing move right there. Because now what you're getting into, you are basically trying to keep this king out of this back line here. And you're basically trying to check him to the point where he will stop. But the thing is, as long as he can return to this square in one move or another, right here, then the moment that you try to move this rook over here to secure this pawn down this line, he will go here. And again, you can bring this rook back and check him off it, but you can't. At that point, it's just a dead draw. At that point, it is genuinely a dead draw. You can't win with that. Now, if we can review White's mistakes, because White made enough mistakes in this whole thing. Taking that knight was not a bright idea. Let's see. I think it was... Let's see. I think it's this way. Nope, it's not that way. There's actually a way for her to end up a little bit better on this, is what it says. Which is curious. Oh, of course, taking that pawn with the knight. Then I can push d5, you know, and then I can't take this anymore because she's got it defended well enough. Now, rook from b to b5, I believe the true move here was... I think you have to play rook to b2 to intercept that pawn, if I'm correct. Yeah, rook to b2 to intercept that pawn that's about to head to a3. Okay. Next, she moved the king over this way, which was really not good. What you want to do with that, I believe what you want to do with that is you want to block, either with one rook or the other. Or do you want to head over this way? Nope, a little bit better. Oh, of course. The bishop taking the rook. And she didn't see that originally, I think. So altogether, out here, I should have had it. Let me go ahead and flip the board here, if I can, if it will let me. If it will let me, there it is, flip the board. Okay. Hang on. I did not want to do this. So, we are right... See, we were right here when, like, that queen takes e4 was just a beautiful case. Because then I took here, and then I proceeded to botch the attack somehow. King to d1. C takes b2 was the computer's recommendation. Rook to b1 was correct. And now the computer wants me to play b5, but I think it also sees the merits of queen takes a2. But if I continue on this path, it just... pawn takes, and now you get to mobilize the bishop, and this rook has to go at this point. There's a check here, this goes here, and now you're just pinning the rook. You know, and the computer says you can win the rook immediately. And then at this point it says you can just castle in, and you're, you know, like you're pretty much, you've got an exchange, you're doing really well. You had to give up that advanced pawn for it, and now you just develop your knight out this way. And this person is now struggling to find responses because now you're attacking the queen again, and now it's almost a forced trade of queens. You can actually just trade queens here and go into a winning endgame. You can just trade here, and you can actually just check here, and now this bishop is going to be, this bishop right here is going to be locked in for a little while. That bishop really is not going anywhere for a good bit. Pawn takes, you know, and he's going to have to try and find a way to extricate that rook, which he's not going to be able to do. And now the really funny part is this little trick right here, moving the knight here. That bishop is going to move out, and then you're going to move the rook here. It's just a beautiful line. It really is. It's a beautiful continuation. Check here, king moves, and you can just automatically trade rooks down and take another pawn. And you are now in exchange and 3 pawns up. That's really good. That's a really good endgame. And black is just obliterating at this point. That was the second game that I wanted to go through. The third that I wanted to go through with you, this one right here, where I had this massive advantage. I made 1 mistake and 1 blunder the entire game, but it was the worst blunder in the world. It was the worst blunder in the world. It was so stupid. I can't believe that I played c6 trying to defend this pawn when I simply could have played my queen here. And again, the bishop may take that pawn there, but then I just do this, and that comes right back to me. And the queen is still defending this pawn, but no, I played c6, and I didn't think about my queen on that space. That was a true blunder right there. But we will go ahead and see what we have mistakes-wise here. This one, I believe, you could have, no, taking there wouldn't have done it. No, that doesn't do it either. Back the bishop off. That's curious. So it actually told me to back the bishop off. That's an interesting way to do things. But it does preserve your bishop pair. Bishop to d7 is the better move. Knight to e2. fading the queen back. Let's look at what the computer has to say. Fading the queen back away, but still maintaining a b5, then h4, and then moving the rooks to the open file, kind of maintaining that plan. Oh, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful plan right there. That's just absolutely crushing at this point. And then the knight will take there. And his defenses are going to be heavily compromised because he's missing his G and H pawns in front of his king. And my H pawn is going to be on a fast track to the next promotion. Plus, as the computer's saying, I can swing this up and over here, and it's going to be really difficult for him to defend it. You know, pawn moves, he moves the king out of, he's got to move the king out of the way at that point. Then I can attack the knight here. And it's definitely a positioning game at this point. As we say, it's definitely a game of just repositioning. He can try that, and then I can just trade here. And we're still a little bit better. Not a lot better, but a little bit. Rook takes, king takes, and then my rook takes his pawn here, and I'm up by one pawn. Although he might have a little bit more activity, but because my bishop is now biting on concrete right now, and I would have to push that pawn to expose it, so to get it really moving. So that one was kind of, those are my only mistakes. Like that was my, that and c6, which I mean that is just blatantly stupid. Like there's stupid and then there's blatantly stupid. So let's move on to the next one. White actually had 2 mistakes and 1 blunder, but not nearly as bad as mine. Probably could have played here. He probably could have played e3. He probably could have played c4. c4 is a move. Knight to c3 is a move. e3 could be a move, but it might not be. No, e3 is not very good. e3 would not be a very good move because the bishop is on f4. It's got no retreat square at that point. But knight to c3 and c4 are both solid moves in this position. They fit in with opening theory for this kind of position. Taking the bishop here was not a good idea. Actually, what he should have done is move the knight instead, and then takes here, takes here, takes here. And now we're back to being roughly square with me being a pawn up. c5 was his last dippy move. Nope. It was a move that probably could have gotten him out of this. That's what I'm thinking. He played c5, which was just terrible. I'm wondering what he could have done here. Attacking the queen? No, because then it can just come over and check him. Trying to, nope, can't guard that. Let's see. Could he have played b5? No. I'm intrigued to see what this would have done. Can't quite get this one. That's fairly simple. Knight moves, and then he shouldn't take that, but well, you really can't. And then b5, then undermining his center. Queen takes here. Knight moves. My knight can move. He can take. We can trade there. And, I mean, if I can trade down at that point, I can win, but I completely blundered away my queen. So, that was that game. It was, and it was a 1743 too, so that was annoying. That was annoying to miss something like that against a 1743. Ugh. Next we had this one where I started off okay. I even had I even started off okay. I even had a really tight advantage here, and this was a beautiful attack. This was I believe this one was done in the Sicilian Najdorf. Yes. This one was done in the Sicilian Najdorf, and I had a not Najdorf, Dragon, because of the G6. It was done in the Dragon. F3 is a move. You can do the bishop, you can do F3, either one. Bishop to E3, and Queen to E2, castling queen side, bishop to E7, and then I went for I put all of it into the attack here. H4, queen moves, and then here it was. Here was my greatest mistake. You do not close the file off with G5, you punch H5. H5, not G5, is the key when you're in this position. If you've started the rolling attack with G4 and H4, you do not push G5. It closes things up too quickly. You push H5, and then they can't respond with G5 because now their bishop is going to get locked in the tower, and you play your knight up here, and that knight on F5 is nigh irrevocable. Queen's got to go here. You can take with the bishop here, and that G-pawn is now gone. So now this G-pawn is now free to just roll forward. And it's going to turn into a battering ram. Now A3 to defend a little bit. The bishop moves here. And that knight has to go over there and try to stop things up. You saw that move there with the knight moving to G7. Like, that's just... That one is just hilarious. Like, shoving the knight right up in front of the king's nose. That's a real funny move right there. The bishop moves here, and then you just drop your knight, like, right in front of him. And then he's got to do this little thematic sacrifice of the rook for the knight. But now you take here, you take the rook back, and now you're in exchange up, and it's just a winning endgame for white at this point. But that's all because I didn't play G5. He only made 2 inaccuracies with no mistakes, no blunders, and he's in 1894. I should have done better. But let's go ahead and learn from the mistakes. G5 is played. You obviously play H5. Queen going here was a mistake.
I'm ready when y'all are.
Queen to G3 was a mistake, and let's see. I believe the better move in this case would have been... I believe it would have been some sort of trade, but I can't think about what it would have been. I think you'd have to plug up the... I think you're plugging up the holes at this point. No, that's not good, because then the knight would go here. That one, okay, the computer thinks that... Okay, A3 is the other one to try and make a little bit of an escape spot, and then rook to F7. But rook to H2 also works, trying to infiltrate along the the h-file. Next move, I'll bring my rook over this way. He'd play that. I could probably go here, and he's gotta put up a more decent defense. Then I've got to fall back a little bit. But that was one of the major ones. Black had no mistakes, no significant mistakes, which I was just, it was phenomenal. And I could have won with that attack. I should have probably won with that attack, because he played a couple of the inaccuracies, but it was like rook to e8 was a little bit of an inaccuracy. Probably should have played rook to c8 earlier. Then I go king to b1. Anyway, that one was that game. And then the final game that I want to show y'all is this one right here, where I could not find a win to save my life. He had more center-pawn loss than I did. 4 mistakes, 4 blunders, to 2 mistakes, 3 blunders, and this was an 18-7. This was me against a 2011. And I should have had this. You can see these advantages right here. Advantage 18.3, 16.9, and he could have gotten a draw. He could have gotten a draw right here because of a mistake that I made. But then he made the wrong move, and I could have won. I could have won. It was unbelievable. But I just was not good enough. So, what we did was, let's go ahead and just learn from our mistakes and see what we've got, because this game was just so stupid. Queen to b6, obviously there was a better move. I checked him there, but I was trying to check him so I could connect my rooks along the back line and gain a tempo on him. But they said there was a better move. I was curious about something like that, but no, not enough. Still not enough, goodness. Right there, attacking the queen. And then you just plant your knight right there on d3, and it just becomes a thorn. Then you can do this, queen blocks, queen takes, pawn takes, and then your rook infiltrates the 7th rank. And now you are just... and now you're really... now you've got a hefty advantage. 2.3 for black. Here I could have done even better. I think it has to do with moving a rook to the open file. No, that's not good enough. Not nearly good enough. Okay. Rook to c6 is good enough for the engine. Rook to b8. Okay, so moving the rook to b8 instead. That was when I gained a very tall advantage, and now my rook could have been doubled up already. And then what I could have done is I could have done this, and then I probably could have done a little something like this, and then just force trade him rooks here. And if I force trade him, I mean, the lead that I've got at this point is just... he can centralize his king, but being an exchange up in this kind of endgame is it's pretty solid. It's actually pretty solid. He's going to have a good centralized knight, yes, but the rook should still be able to outperform. And then, of course, he's going to try and develop, since he's got the pawn majority on this side, he's going to try and develop a passer over here, which is partially what the computer's recommending. And after that, I could have just, I could have swept him. Go here, and he can't push. And then, of course, he goes here. And as long as my rook's on the back rank, there's nothing he can do about it.
Are you still down to play?
And finally, yeah, so you can do this, and yeah. The knight's got to move. You take this king, take those pawns, he's got to stop it, and you're gonna, and I mean at this point, you're just steamrolling. Let's go for the next one. I moved queen to a7, which was not a good idea. I think actually my main shot would have been here, and that would have been the tactical shot. Yeah. That would have been the main tactical shot, and then we all just take each other's pawns, and it would have been a nice game. Yeah. And he's got to develop this. I can take this, he can take here, and I'm just a pawn up, which doesn't necessarily guarantee it doesn't guarantee a win, but. And now finally, there were a couple more of these. I believe. I think dropping back here would have been a little bit better. Or moving a rook to the other side. Ooh, no. Nope, it's not that either. It's not even that. Goodness me. Backing it up? Yeah, backing it up, or to d5 to get them hooked together. Next mistake was that move right there, which what you want to do is you want to drop your rook down to... Oh, no, wait. Here you take. And then you drop the rook down, and now you're forking these two pawns, and he can't defend them because he's got to keep his eyes on this pawn here. He's got to keep his eyes on this advanced pawn, which he can't keep. And you can just take this and get two pawns rolling at this point. Rook moves here to check, king moves, and now you can actually just drop that right there. And if he takes, you just promote, and then what you do is you can actually just do this. And he can't take that rook because this pawn is going to run over and his king can't get there in time. So I can demonstrate it right here with takes, king moves, king moves, king moves, king moves, and now you've shafted him out of the win, because if he tries to move here, pawn moves, king moves, pawn moves, and he can't catch. So those are those mistakes. Those were my major mistakes from that game. I'm not going to go through his mistakes. He made enough as it stands. But anyways, yes, that was my kind of first analysis of the set from my first tournament. Hopefully, with this analysis and a little help from my friends, I can do a little bit better in this next run here. Thank you for joining me, and we will probably go into another tournament with another analysis soon enough. I've also got a couple of specials planned with a few friends of mine, where they're going to play for an hour, and then if they want to, we'll do an analysis on like a live stream or something like that. That'll be nice. So, yeah. Please like and subscribe, and if you enjoy the content, and thank you for stopping by.